Hey folks, Ludite Sam back on the stream. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday one and all. Happy Wednesday normally means Oro days, but we're doing kind of an impromptu interruption in the Oro days, and like, holy crap, my face is huge. Look at me go. Like, have you seen this? Like, actually, I should probably mention, I have with me BrightUmbra from the stream, who is one of my longtime followers, actually. And I have him on Skype with me right now, and we have been engaged for the last, like 3 hours just talking game design?
About that.
Yeah, welcome to the stream, BrightUmbra.
Thanks a bunch.
So yeah, we were just talking about some stuff about like just what we think about games in general. I believe that like this all kind of originated from the fact that I've been talking about game design for quite a while. I'm learning a little bit about programming and game design, and meanwhile, here's BrightUmbra, who's been programming in the language I'm learning for about like 15 years. And actually, you have you were telling me like a really fascinating story about how you had originally gotten started with that. I think you should share because I think it's hilarious.
Oh, you mean the EverQuest thing?
Yeah, the EverQuest thing. That was fantastic.
All right. Well, so originally, I've been programming just on my own for like 10 years prior to this, but so I had been playing EverQuest, and just trying to play the game and
doing what you do.
Sorry?
Doing what you do.
Doing what I do, trying to advance. And of course, in EverQuest, money is everything. So without the coin, you can't really get the items you want and such. Right.
So how did you attempt to get your coins, sir?
Oh, right. So I noticed that that there was, of course, EverQuest has this crafting system where you can make items like arrows or swords or whatnot. And I noticed that there was a way in EverQuest to make a profit from buying arrow components, combining them into arrows, and then selling them back to the vendor. And it was a small profit, like maybe a couple silver pieces a piece. But back in the day, there weren't any restrictions on how quickly you could do these combines. So what I did was I wrote a very simple macro that automated the process of buying, combining, and then selling back.
And so you were able to basically
got to the point
self-sustain off of this vendor, basically buying unlimited quantity things, selling it back for unlimited funds.
Right, exactly. And it worked out really well. And I would tweak it and make it run a little faster, and we would get stopwatches and time it.
Nice, because that's the only way you can do that.
Yeah. Well, eventually it got to the point where I had enough currency to buy pretty much anything I wanted in the game. So that was great and all, but then one day I found that there was a market for this currency.
Like a real-life money market.
Yeah, a real-life market for this fake
in an
MMO.
Currency. Like, who would have thought?
Yeah, really. So, so I started selling it and ended up making about $10,000 in the space of 3 months.
Which is outstanding. Holy shit, dude.
It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Of course, I was 22 years old at the time, so I took that money and went skydiving with it.
Made his first six figures at 22. How many people could say that?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
So yeah, very cool.
But that's how I started transitioning my programming experience out of the hobby realm and into something that I could say was professional, because technically I was getting paid for it. And anything you do that you get paid for, you could say you do professionally. So,
That's true.
Yeah. But I didn't really stay in games with it. I kind of took that and turned it into something I could put on a resume. I mean, look, I automated this software. I do software automation.
Yeah. I cheated at a video game. Hire me. My ethics are flawless.
Right. But I mean, I've told that story to people, and that story has gotten me jobs in automation. So, I did some factory automation for a fuel depot in the Army. Now, I as an independent contractor.
Does that say anything about our U.S. military? I don't know.
Well, maybe.
I don't know. I meant this joking, but I mean, if we want to turn it into a commentary, we can.
Oh, no. Let's not go there.
All right. So yeah. I just thought that was like such a fascinating just like entry into programming. It was just like the fact that you were able to do that. Like, I mean, I like prospecting on economies myself. I have actually put my experience playing EVE Online onto my resume for certain jobs because there was one job that I applied for that was basically managing a online storefront. What's kind of similar to that is, well, I did a lot of like I played EVE Online and I basically took like I made a little a character who sat around in Jita 4.4, which is like the market hub of the entire universe.
Right.
And I gave him like, I think 10 million ISK, which is like 10 million sounds like a lot, but like, believe me when I say that, like in the grand scheme of things, that's like pennies.
It's like drops in the bucket.
Right. So like I gave him 10 million ISK and I had him start trading from there. And about less than a year after that, I had him, like his net worth was, I think, 5 billion.
Jeez.
Which like was just all from station trading. He didn't actually like undock and fly anywhere. He just bought things and resold them on the market.
Right.
And like, you know, it sounds like
that's margins trading, isn't it?
it is margin trading, but like, you know, but like what's kind of funny is that there's a lot of people I think that really get like they think that like there's like I'm not doing anything like good for the market when I do that, and I'm just like producing money for myself and moving numbers around, and like I'm not doing anything productive. But I actually disagree.
That sounds like Wall Street to me.
But like, see, that's the thing is the reason why I disagree is because the way that game works is that the people I was buying from, like their market was basically people who were producing goods from in one way, shape, or form. And so like maybe they were creating it like using
the industry,
like using crafting, or maybe they were like running missions that would like the NPC pirates that they're killing, they drop the all this loot, and
otherwise known as harvesting.
And part of it basically is like, this is not combat, everybody, this is farming. So let's be clear on it. So like, as part of the income of running missions is selling off all this stuff. And so, if you're selling all this stuff, like someone must want it. And so like you could go in and you could like manually sell all like the best buy orders and like wait for those buy orders to be filled. And, you know, constantly tweak those numbers as people outbid your, you know, thing. And like, but that's a lot of work. And all the time that you spend doing that is time that you're not spending going out and killing more dudes and getting more stuff. Right. So what I did was I said, by putting up my buy orders, I was basically saying, hey, look, whatever you got, I'll buy it right now, immediately. You can get the money right now and you can go back and do the thing that you're good at. And then I will do the thing that I'm good at and sell it for the maximum price that I can via the market, you know, with all the competition involved. And that usually involved some margin of like anywhere from 2 to 4%. But what I was doing essentially was warehousing. You know, like I was going through the work of actually getting the best price for things, and keeping that for myself, while at the same time giving what to them is a fair market price for what they're doing. And everybody's happy. Like it's actually a service to the market, because like what the people who are producing the goods always have a price that they get for, or they always have a buyer immediately, and the people who want this good always have the seller immediately. So what I do is I provide liquidity to the market, and so. You
know, there's a market, a real money market for ISK as well.
There is. And,
just putting that out there.
And, you know, like it's crossed my mind. That said, another thing that I did, like I took my experience doing that and I played a game called Realm of the Mad God. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Realm of the Mad God, yes.
Yeah, so one of the things you have to understand about that game is that like part of the progression of that game, at least for your permadeath character, is these stat pots that
Right.
like, you drink down the def pot and you get 1 point defense and up until a maximum. And so these things are farmable and they're in high demand. Well, what I did was I got my hands on a few of these things and I engaged in a pure barter economy. Like I knew what you could get for each one of these pots, and I knew what I could potentially pay for each of these pots. So what I would do is I actually made a spreadsheet for myself to do this. Was like, and it was full of like macro VBA, like click on the cell and make a number happen.
Yeah.
So that like, and what that thing did was it provided me with all the information I needed for like what trades I was willing to make. And like when I made that trade, I would click the button to indicate I had made it, which updated my inventory that like that told me how many of these things that I had, because the inventory system in that game is really, really wonky in that like you have to put all your stuff in like this bank, and like chests only have 8 slots, and it's hard to tell what you have in total. So that thing kept track of my inventory, and I basically sat down and said, you want to imagine online storefront with an inventory? I can do that. And
that's a good way to build skills.
And I
in the real world.
And I tell you what, I got a job interview for it. Like I didn't end up getting the job, which is kind of unfortunate because I wanted to be the guy who put up on Twitter, I put Eve on my resume and got the job.
Yeah, that would have gotten you some recognition.
But I mean, like Eve is crazy in that like you can. The political element is so strong that it like attracts actual politicians. I mean, like all respects to the late Vile-Rat, who was like a legitimate like worldwide international international thing that I just said. What was the word? God damn it. I am doing a disservice to his name. International, not a politician. What is that? You representative for your
diplomat?
Diplomat. Yes. Diplomat. Oh my God. How did I not get that word? Like he was a legitimate international diplomat, and he just took those skills and applied them to Eve because it was totally valid.
Yeah.
So very, very cool. I have a lot of respect for EVE Online in general, but that's its own little topic there.
Yeah, no kidding.
We
originally started. We went off on a tangent with D&D, but we were originally talking about colony management games.
Yes, actually. So like
Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah, I mean your initial question, like what I think about colony management games, like it's kind of. How would I word this? I compared colony management games with basically sandboxes, especially Dwarf Fortress, because like again, Dwarf Fortress has no goal, so you can basically just do whatever.
Or like Banished.
I looked at Banished and it seemed kind of similar. I don't have any experience with it, but like I feel like I have a sense of how it plays.
You can get a pretty good sense from YouTube videos.
Yeah, so. I mean, does that have a goal, by the way? Like, or does it
as far as I'm aware, it's similar to Dwarf Fortress in that aspect. There's no stated goal other than to simply survive.
Okay, I know that No Moria is kind of a Dwarf Fortress clone, kind of intentionally.
Yeah, like an isometric 3D Dwarf Fortress clone.
Except it's actually graphical, so like maybe people can actually get into it or something.
Yeah, no, I've seen like Avac, for example. He'll stream that occasionally.
Okay, so like, what do I think of them? Well, I mean, I like them as in concept because like Dwarf Fortress is really interesting in that like you're playing with a lot of systems and seeing how the systems interact and tweaking and optimizing those systems and making those systems do cool things. It's kind of like how we were talking about how Minecraft and Terraria. They're like tile placement things, but like you mentioned that you lost a lot of interest in Terraria when it kind of dawned on you that I could just draw it in pixels and paint.
Right. Yeah. No, that's exactly what happened. I downloaded the level editor and the world editor for it, and literally with a few mouse clicks you could paint all this gold ore all over the place, or gold bricks, or whatever you wanted anywhere, and it just kind of It was like playing MS Paint.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it's not even like adding more resources to the game. I mean, like, what's to stop you from then, like designing your treehouse by not like standing around and like, placing the tiles, but rather just like drawing the treehouse in with like a little pencil tool, and like, and then, when you think about Terraria that way, suddenly it's like, it becomes this really super inefficient MS Paint and not much, and I can see why it would kill your motivation to play it, because if it is just a paint simulator, then it's not really
it's not really a game.
Yeah, it's not really a game. But there are things in those games that are not just static tile placement things, like they have to do with like moving systems. Like, actually, what I should do? I can totally do. This might be a little bit of work, but I can actually stream.
Stream that Terraria.
Yeah, that
thing you were talking about.
Yeah, let's see if I can.
Machine you made.
Let's see if I can do this here.
Okay.
Because basically, what I made was I made a series of tanks that. God, I hope I have the. I might. Oh, I don't think I have Terraria up. No, I had a preset for Terraria in the thing. What am I talking about?
You using OBS?
Yeah, I had a preset for that.
Okay.
But I don't think I have that anymore.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you stream Terraria.
I never did, but like I once did it like for like 5 minutes specifically to show that. There's actually a YouTube highlight, or not YouTube, or both YouTube and
Twitch
highlight. And like now I have to put up the server because it's actually on a server. There we go.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Okay. We might actually
an awful lot of work for a 5-minute payoff.
I know. We might actually be able to get this done though. Okay. So here's Terraria, and I'm gonna have to get a scene. I'm just probably gonna do a straight screen cap for it. Why is it not launching? Oh, what's downloading? Oh, something's downloading.
Oh, it's probably an update.
Oh, it's DayZ, and it's messing up like the stream quality. God, DayZ. That's a game I haven't played for a while.
DayZ. Wow. Yeah. I actually haven't ever played it.
Yeah, DayZ I thought was really fascinating for several different reasons. Why do you think Terraria's? Oh, because it is already running. God damn it. Okay, we need to do this and that and this and now I have this big black screen, which is fabulous. We can even do a game capture, and this is we did it! There it is! Yay! Okay, so
it'll be a little bit before I see it.
Yeah, it is. So, but like for those of you on the stream who can see it right now, who are actually viewing it live, one of the things that I made was this guy down here. He is a system he's basically a liquid pumping system. And so what you have is there's 5 different tanks actually. You've got, you have like lava right there. You've got the honey over there and the water. But you also have these 2 sub-tanks. And I have everything nice and color-coded. And like there's directions on how to use it. Like a little reference guide. And like here's like the how-to. And so what you do is like, let's say you want obsidian. So like I can click on this guy. And it will pump the lava into this sub-tank. Is this the... Oh, actually, I'm doing this wrong.
I can't really see it anyway. Twitch is twitching out on me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah.
All right, so let's pump that back. I actually did that wrong because the left tank is supposed to be the fast tank, like the fast liquid that goes in that tank, and then the slow liquid goes in the other tank because otherwise it doesn't work very well.
Right.
And so it's still pumping, and actually it's too full now, so it's not going to pump all the way. I never said this thing was perfect, but it actually got the job done. There he goes. There we go. So what we want to do is we want to pump some water into here. And there. And so if we pump lava into the other tank, it combines at this pixel right here into obsidian. And now I can just kind of take this and get as much obsidian as I want. And like because it's set up in this way, it also takes advantage of the why is this not working? It's not pumping back. Oh, I know why, because I'm doing the wrong switch. So yeah, it also takes advantage of the liquid duplication trick, where like a falling liquid will kind of duplicate itself. And so like I can have as much of any liquid that I want or any block type that I want. And like this is the kind of stuff that you can't really do in MS Paint. You know, like this involves moving parts, and like it becomes
it's the physics.
Yeah,
you're playing with the physics of the game.
It becomes one. Let me switch back to this. It becomes something that like becomes more fundamental to the game that like a game you have to do in a game, as opposed to like being able to like draw like like it's basically like. Terraria as a build the thing is kind of like, here, I've already done all the pixel art here and now just like rearrange the pixel art using another form of pixel art. But like, the systems that involve moving parts, those are the things that still retain their interestingness after you kind of spoil the magic and you can't, and you like can't play Terraria anymore because you realize it's just MS Paint.
Yeah. Although to be perfectly fair, you could have built this in the MS Paint version. You couldn't turn it on.
Yeah, I couldn't run it.
Right.
Yeah, but like
you could have built it that way.
Yeah. So yeah. So
but that doesn't necessarily detract from what you're saying. I'm just being pedantic.
So like what's interesting about stuff like Dwarf Fortress is that you have kind of a like everything is a moving part. Like just looking at it is not interesting by itself. It is interesting in the way that it moves and the way that like the parts are interacting all the time. And like
it's interesting in the same way those Rube Goldberg simulators are interesting.
Yeah, like you like it's one thing to just look at a whole bunch of weird pipes and like spirals and stuff sticking around, but like it's just not the same as watching it run.
Exactly.
So like. One of the things that like I perennially have a problem with in my own personal experience of playing those games is to some degree a little bit of a lack of creativity. It's kind of like it's less prevalent in than in something like Terraria or Minecraft, where just like I look at these creations that people have made and I'm like, wow, that looks cool, and I have no interest in making that. But what is still kind of interesting is making things in Dwarf Fortress. But like, maybe it's just like the idea of generating an idea of like what to do in those games.
Right.
I always have this moment of like a paralysis at the start where you kind of have to decide what your layout is going to look like, and the layout's going to have a huge impact on the efficiency of your fortress. But like all you have is a mountain, and you're like, how do I carve out this mountain? And like once you have something, then it's easier to make decisions about like, okay, well I got to build something out here, and it makes sense to put something here. But like starting out and deciding this is what like the superstructure is going to be, like God, like it takes me like an hour. Like I'll be like, I'll have the game on pause for an hour just looking at it and designating digs and then undesignating them because I don't like them anymore. And like then finally, like an hour later, the dwarves actually disembark from their caravan. So
yeah, it's kind of like the difficulties with starting that you have when you're a writer, right? I mean, you've got this giant blank page facing you, and it's like, I got to put something in here, but I don't know what.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I also do writing, like authorship writing in various capacities.
Well, then you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And what's kind of funny is my current, like, I mean, even doing something like from a fictional standpoint, like I've been doing some of that too. But like, as an example, my current article that I'm writing right now, it's almost done. Like it's going to be this article about like the competitive meta of games and like people's understanding of it at various levels. But like it totally didn't start out that way at all. It started out as like, how do pub stomper characters happen? And like it just kind of evolved into this other place that like I think is a much better place. But like, I've learned that you just have to like get something down on paper and see where it takes you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's the same way with games like Dwarf Fortress, but like you were saying.
Yeah. So, like,
Although the issue that you brought up, where say you've got a fort and it's running, and you've got all these different things, you've got a military, you've got an industry, and you're sort of having to invent things, I think you said invent problems to solve.
yeah, well, I mean, to some degree, the system does that, but you also
To a small degree, yeah.
Yeah.
But the future progression of your fort is completely and totally up to you.
Yes.
Do you think a game like that would benefit from having, say, I don't know. They kind of do this to a degree with the nobles, but
Okay.
Say having your dwarves tell you what they want.
Well, like, one of the things that the ways that I look at games is that they are interactions that drive behavior. Like, in some ways, games are mind control.
Yeah.
Like, or like, it's kind of like you play DDR, and DDR is controlling your legs, because, like, if you put like the arrows up in front of me, like, I may not have a dance pad, but my legs are going to start moving. Like, it's gonna happen. I can't stop myself. So, like, a game is responsible for how it's played, and a game that embraces its responsibility correctly can create some interesting interactions that, like, are very much the fault of the both the fault of the game and a credit to the game. Like fault is not like fault. I don't mean it in a bad way, although it could be. Like a game that, like, compels you to, I don't know, do like corporate fraud would probably be bad, but
Probably, yeah.
But a game that compels you to have a good experience, like, I feel like that's what games do, or what the goal of a game is when you design the rules for a game, is make it so that following the rules is itself a compelling experience. And like, that's been one of the things I've been struggling with a little bit in wrapping my brain around like sandbox systems like Minecraft and stuff like that, is that how much of the experience is the fault of Minecraft, and how much of it is the Minecraft being kind of the Dumbo's feather of, like, it was in you all along, that like you made your own experience. And, like, I don't think that, like, I still like Minecraft as an idea, and I think it's inspired a lot of creativity, because, like, some people, I guess, they kind of need that Dumbo's feather. Because, like, how many people would have gotten into, like, electrical engineering because of redstone in Minecraft?
Yeah.
Like, that's so wild that, like, it, like, literally is like I saw redstone, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can use that for, like, switches and whatnot. And then I started, like, seeing people talk about and, or, and not gates, and I'm like, holy shit, I learned about that in Rocky's Boots in the Apple II. And then I had, like, another double holy shit moment of, holy shit, that old Apple II game I played at 6 years old was teaching me electrical engineering and computers. Like, that was way rad. So, like, to some degree, these things exist, and, like, you kind of work with them and you do things with them, but, like, it's kind of like Kerbal Space Program, where, like, you do kind of have a goal, like, you got to put something up into space, and, like, if you just futz around with the game mechanics of of basically what amounts to rocket science, I mean, like, it's kind of fun for a while, but, like, without that goal of put something into space, like, you don't.
There's really nothing to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's fun to watch the rocket go boom or something, but, like, but then having a goal to work towards naturally causes you to explore the system in a purposeful way, and so, like,
well, I guess then the question is what is more important, a self-directed goal or a I guess a game-directed goal? I mean, who's giving you the goal?
and that's where that's where I'm trying to, like, figure it out, because, like, I think that Minecraft is a very positive experience in a lot of people's lives, and, like, it's, like, in terms of, like, games that you can interact with, it's just so much healthier than so many other games that I could name. And because it is so compelling, and because it has such a wide possibility space, the fact that, like, all these things link up with each other, and, like, you can do all these different, like, you take on all these different projects, it's a very, very fulfilling hobby, I think. But how much Minecraft can take responsibility for how fulfilling it is a question that I'm still not able to answer. because like it's kind of like what we were talking about like before we got on the stream here. We were talking about D&D being the Dumbo's feather of like D&D actually being very bad at telling stories if you just leave it to its own devices.
That's right. Before we got cut off, I was talking about a time where I had to fudge dice rolls just to keep the story going.
Oh, well, by all means. I didn't hear how that ended, so go ahead and tell us what that's all about.
Oh, geez. Well, I think the context was I was running a game. It was like a sort of a murder mystery story, and it was the players were trying to solve this supernatural murder case, I guess.
Okay.
And I had originally when I was designing the session, on my own, I was I had these situations where the characters would walk into a room and I'd have to make a search check if they were looking for whatever clues and whatnot, and if they succeeded on the search check, then they would find this piece of evidence that would lead them in another direction and would keep the story going.
Okay, yeah, but I think I see where this is going.
Yeah. But so when it came time to play, the characters entered the room, they did the search check, and every single one of them failed.
Yeah. See, that's the funny thing.
And so they didn't know where to go. So, I had to fudge it.
But like what you were doing was like you were basically like you had written this story prior and you knew how it went, but then like you also felt kind of obligated to, well, we got to make D&D factor into this somehow because we're playing D&D.
Right.
And
exactly.
So the only way you can do that is by having them make a search roll, and like if they fail, like what now?
Then what? Yeah, what now?
So they can't fail.
I have to acknowledge though that was a bit of a failing on my part.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really factor in the possibility that every single one of my 6 players would fail their search checks. I kind of figured at least one would get it.
Well, what's kind of interesting is that when you say it that way, one of the things that like I feel like is kind of in the DM's toolkit of like what he if failure is supposed to be an option,
then
like,
it should be planned for.
Like, well, it should be planned for, but at the same time, it also shouldn't be like I don't think you should allow all 6 players to make a search check because that's almost a statistical guarantee of success.
Right? Yeah.
So like I think a lot of DMs will actually like make it so that like only like one person can make the search check kind of on behalf of the group, because otherwise there's never any chance of failure.
Right.
But like that's kind of the failing.
But in that case, I didn't want them to fail. I wanted them to find it because, well, partly because I wanted to show them how brilliant I was as a DM. But
well, it's because you wanted them to see the story, and oh my god, like.
I wanted them to participate in it.
It's so fascinating that you bring that up because like that is, I think, one of the biggest problems with like adding stories to games is that like if you add a story to a game, you want people to see the story, and you have to do the thing that you did in D&D with fudging the dice roll to make sure that nobody can fail. So that because like
I wanted the game to get out of the way of the story.
Wanting people to see the story is not wrong. Like it's in fact the correct answer, because like you have this great story, and if it goes untold, then it's of no value to anybody. And so by adding in game elements, like it prevented people from seeing the story, and you made the right call by removing the game and telling the story. Now, like. I don't think that. So, like, if you talk about games and stories, there's a lot of clout of that conversation, and like, there's the whole narratology, ludology kind of debate thing going on, and I think it's actually much, much simpler than people realize. But like, it's people's failure to define what a story means and what a game means, right. at least in the context of the conversation. I should say right now that I don't think that the colloquial definition of game, I don't think that stories can never touch that system. I think
what do you mean?
That, like what I mean by like if you were to sit down and say that like Hate Plus, or Hate, an analog story. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry.
It's like a visual novel sort of thing, except you kind of engage with it by doing a sort of archaeological, like, look up the logs of things that happened, and you talk with people who are actually AIs. That's kind of the format of it. And like a lot of people would have no problem calling that a game. And I don't begrudge them that. Like if you want to call that a game, sure. Colloquially, it makes a certain amount of sense, and like it's kind of an interactive software thing that you do for amusement, and like okay. But like I don't think that you can really call that I actually think that Hate, an analog story, is a positive direction for stories and games, because it doesn't try to like put in like a win-loss state and like I gotta do the thing or else I'm not.
So like artificial rewards and punishments.
Like you don't want to have to the theme of the game is that you basically dock with this space station, and it's not a space, like a derelict ship, and you're downloading the logs of it. But rather than having a person, like an avatar, that you walk around a derelict station and look for story things and nodes and oh man, there's a hull breach over there and you gotta not get sucked out into space. They don't do any of that because there's no place for that in a game like this. Actually what they do is they present you with a computer-like user interface and you just navigate it, which is a much better choice, in my opinion, for something like that. Because
so it sounds to me like it's less of a game and more of a just an alternative vehicle for the story.
Well, right, and I think that that's a strong direction for games and stories to go. Is not like a game in the classical sense, because I mean, if you think about it, if Keith Burgun just put up an article on this topic about making localized definitions for words, and the example that he used was that if you say a game should never have a story, loads of people are going to disagree with you. But if you specify down to the level of a strategy game should not have a linear story, then you get to the point where people are a lot more, oh, okay, that makes sense. If you're playing a game of Civilization and you have a whole bunch of cutscenes that happen at certain intervals, regardless of anything else that's happening in the game.
That seems kind of silly.
That seems really silly. And so intuitively, I think people realize that games and stories are not don't really have very much to offer each other, but only if you define them very specifically like that. Whereas if you were to say that, does Hate Plus need a story? Well, yes, it absolutely needs a story
because it is the story.
Yeah, it is the experience, Yeah. And if you want to call that a game, I'm okay with that. I'm going to call.
Well, it sounds to me like that's the difference between I guess interactive media and games is in that example, you're not really a part of the story. And you're not really playing the role of a person who's a part of the story.
Well,
whereas in a game...
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, whereas in a game that has a story where you're actually playing a part in it, I mean, that's sort of a different thing.
Yeah. Well, okay, so there is a little bit of role-playing, quote-unquote, going on in Hate Plus, where you actually, you have conversations sort of with the AI who are, kind of leading you through the progression of logs, because basically what it's doing is it's telling a story out of order, but telling it in a way that it kind of leads up to you see how it ended, but how it got there is really unclear, and that's the big question. So you start to you see entries at the end, you see entries more at the beginning, and you're kind of gradually making your way towards the middle, which is the big reveal, which is what you actually want to know about. And then once you know that, suddenly the rest of the story is whoa, this is way darker than I ever thought that it was.
You're making me want to play this.
I recommend it, if nothing else, just to kind of see how what I consider to be the appropriate place for a story in a game. There's also this kind of weird like dating sim element that I think is weird and like kind of out of place and really felt tacked on to me. And but like at the same time,
maybe somebody said we'd have to make this more like a game.
Well, again, like it comes down to like I feel like the person who made it probably plays a lot of dating sims, and it's kind of like one of those things where like you get a sense of what a thing is, and you know your work is influenced by things that you think are good.
I see.
Because I mean, everybody does that. Like every, I would say
there's a lot of sandbox games that are like that.
Yeah, I would say
the
that
sandbox element is tacked on.
Anybody who makes a game, I think what they are basically doing is kind of unconsciously saying, "This is what I think games should be like." You know, like this is like it's natural because like if you didn't think the game should be like that, then you wouldn't make it.
They wouldn't have made their game that way.
Yeah. So, what's kind of funny though is that the role playing in I almost said D&D, although I think I'm about to segue back into that. The role playing that happens in Hate Plus is still pretty artificial and canned, and it kind of comes back to the problem with most RPGs and video games. If you take the genre name literally and you try to make it about role playing, like I asserted earlier in our conversation that role playing as a single player role playing is an oxymoron. Like it isn't actually a thing. And like in no other place on this earth other than video games is single player role playing a thing. It doesn't even make sense because like you think about role playing in the classroom, you're like maybe approaching a different perspective or practicing an interaction. You know, two people get into a simulated cockpit and they fly a pretend airplane, but they do so that they can practice being pilot and co-pilot, and that's role playing, you know. And so like or
like in a civics classroom when you're doing mock trials or mock interviews.
Absolutely, that's a fantastic example.
Yeah.
And so like role playing is fundamentally about people, and we do not simulate people well enough in video games, in computer software.
No.
Where role playing is meaningful. Like, you know, like we take a look at these conversation trees and these morality systems, and we think that this is role playing, but it's like it lacks the creative expression and the like it doesn't have that. Like it doesn't have the ability to react to human interaction in a meaningful way, the same way that role playing in a multiplayer environment does.
Right.
So like, and it's like
because all the interactions are pre-canned.
Yes.
You know, everything that these artificial characters can do has been pre-decided by somebody who cannot anticipate your behavior.
Right. But like, so actually, when you say that, I like to make a comparison with the way the RPGs are designed, that like, technically speaking, there is some role playing going on, but what's happening is a role playing interaction between the player and the developer as filtered through an indirect static medium. Right. So like, it can sometimes fool you into thinking that you're role playing, but like, I want to get an example that I think throws this to stark relief.
Okay.
And this will especially make sense if you've played D&D or other games like it.
Right.
So I played a game called Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Have you played that, by the way?
I haven't played it. I watched a friend of mine play it.
Okay.
And I've seen a few YouTube Let's Plays.
Okay. Sure.
So I'm familiar with it, and I have played an awful lot of actual Vampire the Masquerade, the role-playing game.
Okay,
tabletop.
So you know all about the principle of the Masquerade of like you can't reveal that you're a vampire, and like you have like the Camarilla that enforces this law that like, you know, if you reveal the existence of vampires to the world, we're probably going to hunt you down and kill you because like that's just going to be dangerous because humans can't handle the existence of vampires.
And if they know, then you know they'll start defending themselves, and it'll be bad for us. Yeah. No, I'm familiar with all that.
Okay, so there's an interaction that happens in that game that the premise is that you turn into a vampire in the very, very beginning, and you're kind of getting your feet as a vampire.
Okay.
And you, about halfway through the game, you find this character. She's this woman walks up to you, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's you! We thought you were dead." And and like through the course of this interaction, you kind of put together, "Oh, this is a human who knew me as a human," and
Right.
I have nobody knows where I've been, this whole time, and so like the dialogue options kind of try to deny it, but she's like, no, what are you talking about? Like, what do you have? Do you have like amnesia? And like, what is there some kind of problem going on? Look, I'm gonna call my friends, and we're gonna get you off your feet. Everything's gonna be okay. We're gonna fix this. Like, maybe you're on drugs or something, and like, and so like
That's awkward.
so the point of the conversation is that you can't make her let that phone call.
Right.
Can't let her make that phone, other way around. Anyway, you can't let her make that phone call, because if you do, she's maybe revealing the thing, because if she makes the phone call, boom, masquerade violation right then and there.
Right. These people attended your funeral.
Yeah. Well, like, actually, see, here's the thing: is I didn't think that was going to happen, because if you think about it, like, people attend your funeral, not like, was there a funeral? And if there was one, you didn't, like, because when you say that, you were turned into a vampire, like, living, so like you just kind of disappeared, right?
Right. Yeah. Good point.
So nobody knew where you were. So like, I thought to myself, well, like, maybe this will be problematic, but like,
maybe I can slip back into my old life in certain
like, I mean, I'm
ways.
I'm interested in this character. This character is interesting. I want to see more of this character. I want to see more of like the life prior to being a vampire. I thought that'd be interesting.
Right.
But like,
that's not an option.
But that's a dead end. Like, as soon as she makes the phone call, the masquerade violation happens, and then she follows you around until you like go into a door, and then you never see her again.
Oh, jeez.
Now, here's the other thing: is that there's another system in the game called humanity, which like, if you do things that, like, it's almost like a morality system. Like, if you like straight up kill a dude, you lose a point of humanity,
right,
without like having a reason for it or whatever. And like, if you run out of if you're low on humanity, you can go into like these bestial frenzies, lose control of your character, and like, like, it's kind of bad if you're trying to keep a low profile as a vampire, if you just like suddenly randomly feed on people and you can't help yourself.
Right.
So like, if you kill her, you get a masquerade redemption, which like is that 5-point system, and then I was actually expected to lose a point of humanity, because like, to me, it seems like if you let her
killing
live,
somebody that that you were on good terms with, that would go against.
And on top of that, like, you're also, there's also the nature of like, maybe you are trying to get back in touch with your human life, and like, it seemed to make sense that maybe I would lose a point of humanity, or maybe like gain some humanity by not killing her, and like, I wanted to see how it all turned out, but it ended up being a flat interaction. Now, the reason why it's an interesting example, though, is because let's think about how this would have happened in D&D. I, as a player, would have been like, I let her make the phone call. And the GM is a competent GM is automatically signaled, then
you want to see what's going on with that interaction.
I didn't think that you would be interested in this character. I thought you were going to kill her, but I didn't think about that. Well, okay, let me, and he kind of puts the gears going in his head, and suddenly he has a whole scenario around this character that you're interested in, and like, your expression of like, this is the kind of story that I want to see, had a impact on a human being. The reason why it couldn't happen in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is because it happened as filtered through a static interaction, and the player and the developer never got a chance to meet face to face.
Right.
Like,
right.
they can't read each other. They can't role play with each other properly, because
it's not a cooperative storytelling session.
Yeah, they don't know who they are, and like, it's just that you can't role play with each other if you never meet.
Right.
So that's why I think a single player RPG is kind of an oxymoron. because like it just can't exist to the depth that a proper role-playing system will actually help you to role-play.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree completely.
So I mean,
no, at the start of our conversation earlier, I was a little dubious on that point, but it's
well, it's
really quite plain.
But that's the thing, is that like I feel like there is a disconnect though between people, between the term role-playing game, or the term role-playing outside of video games, and the term role-playing in video games, because like people have a sense of, like, I'm role-playing in a video game means conversation trees. Like that's just how it is. And like, and they unconsciously have this construct in their minds of, these are the actions that, like, if I do them, these count as role playing. These actions do not count as role playing, and hence we get the situation where me and my girlfriend Joy played through the first third of Dragon Age in our underwear because because it didn't matter. Like nobody reacted to the fact that here's all these dudes walking around in their underwear, because it didn't matter.
Right.
So, like, and people recognize that doesn't matter, and they kind of turn that part of their brain off of, like, this is something that matters to role play. They realize that, like, if they are in if they're in this situation where time is a factor of, like, oh, we got to get to the throne room before the dude gets there. But like they realize if they just stand around and like they got to go use the bathroom or they got to go fix a snack, they realize that for all practical purposes, time is stopped.
Right.
And so
all the urgency bleeds away.
Yeah. And so like I think that people realize that, like, the limitations of the single player RPG and just kind of overlook them. But
well, I mean, that's the best we can do. I mean,
yeah, it is.
What can, I mean, short from developing authentic, self-aware artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
How do you solve this problem?
Well, so,
or is it even a problem to be solved?
Well, see, here's the thing: is the only way I think it can solve this problem is by adding more people. And right, like that
which takes away the single player part.
Yeah, it does. And like it's like I unfortunately I think there are just some things in games that are just going to be pipe dreams, like the holodeck promise of VR. You know, like we like at least as it exists in Star Trek, because like you're in Star Trek and like people go and travel back to like. There's the episode where like Data is like Sherlock Holmes, right?
Right.
And all these people are, you know, acting like real human beings, and like they actually tell the computer,
like I said, self-aware artificial intelligence.
And they tell the computer, like, design an antagonist capable of defeating Data, and the computer's like beep boop done, you know.
Right. Yeah.
like Worf detects like some kind of power surge in the holodeck. Oh, but now it's gone. You know, yeah. And that's all it takes.
And plot lines like that always have me wondering, what does the starship need with a crew?
It's true. It's totally true.
Why are we? If it can artificially generate intelligence on a whim.
Like, why are we putting human beings at risk on these missions? You know, like let's just throw money at the problem.
There's a lot of plot holes there if you really look into it.
Yeah, it is.
But ultimately, Star Trek wasn't about the technology; it was about the stories they could tell with it.
Sure.
That's what you need humans for.
But yeah, so like it's just one of those things that like the holodeck is just like as we imagine it. I just don't think will happen. I mean, like, if it ever does happen, I think it raises some pretty existential questions that have to do with transhumanism.
Well, yeah.
But, like, I don't think it's going to happen just as, like, and we made an entertainment for ourselves and all was good, you know?
No, certainly not.
No. But,
although, like we were saying earlier with single-player RPGs, the solution is to either, remove the single-player aspect or create authentic artificial intelligence, but that's the same thing as removing the single player aspect, isn't it?
Well, I mean, if
you create a self-aware intelligence, self-aware intelligence, you're really just making a multiplayer game where the other players can't escape from.
Oh, that is unbelievable. That is the best thing I've ever heard. Oh, so fantastic.
It would suck to be one of those guys.
So yeah, like I have invented you in order to be amusement for the master race. Like, wow, that is that sounds evil.
Can you please build me a body so I can interact in the real world?
Yeah. So here's something that's really interesting though. When it comes to role playing in video games, I believe that there is a very prominent example of a role playing game, like in the literal definition of role playing game, that exists today that most people do not consider to be a role playing game, and that is EVE Online. So,
I always saw it as a role playing game.
So I think the reason why most people don't though is because they think that role playing, again, it comes out of that D&D divide of like, here's the game system. And that's ROL playing. Here's thespian acting, writing, and that's ROLE playing. And never the twain shall meet. Like that's like, but like everything you do in D&D is role playing. And like you do the things that the game system encourages you to do. And so the game encourages you, like it gives you XP and lets you level up for killing monsters. So role playing by killing monsters is like exactly what D&D wants you to do.
Right.
Meanwhile, in EVE Online, there's all these conflicting forces and like all these like incentives to do things that like naturally bring people into conflict with each other, and like a lot of the things that happen socially in the game, I mean, like if you think about it, it's like a whole bunch of people sitting at their computers like doing things in video games. But like you can take the bones of what they did and thematic elements and write a pretty compelling role like sci-fi story based off of that, and like it happened, it was real. Like, you know, when the like I don't know if you ever saw like any of their ad campaigns, like one of them was Eve is Real, and they had the guy who was basically telling the story of a fleet op where like, you know, two fleets came into conflict with each other and he was flying an interceptor, and like, you know, he ended up flying through like 50 clicks of space, like basically dodging gunfire so that he could get to the sniping fleet that was pounding on his fleet. And he provided like a warp and anchor point for his entire fleet, which all warped in and like, you know, took him to town. And like, it's a really compelling story how that all happened. And to me, that is role playing. Like,
and it actually happened. These people actually did these things. I mean, not in physical space, but in an environment, certainly.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think it's the reality of the situation that compels the players who play that game.
Right.
But like, I think that's the primary difference between what the role playing and like ROLE, that's the primary difference is a reality. There's a I'm gonna take this opportunity, and I'm gonna try not to be. I hope I don't come across as like a dick for this, but like I'm gonna take an opportunity to take a little bit of a shot at a web series or a YouTube series called Extra Credits. Extra Credits. Are you familiar with them, by the way? Like, do you ever watch their videos?
I've heard of them. I have not watched their videos, though.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I'm gonna try to keep things tame as much as possible, and like not like, you know.
Well, you're not gonna offend me.
Yeah. Okay. But like, I don't want to like seem like I'm just like, you know, like I don't think that they're dumb people by any means. But I do think that after having watched a lot of their videos, I think in some ways they're a little misguided. And the reason why I think they're misguided is because they have in their heads this, like they think that games are a fantasy, and they think that games are the best as a fantasy.
Like escape from reality type fantasy.
Kind of an escape from reality, but oh God, this is difficult to describe. But like, let me put it this way.
Okay.
Are you familiar with a game called Firefall?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Firefall is a game that Extra Credits did a video series on because they heard about the premise of this game and they were like, whoa, this game is going to be the best game.
Oh boy.
And and they littered their videos with, look guys, I'm not saying this is going to be the best game. I mean, like, it could be terrible, but oh my God, this game, What
was the premise?
So the premise is this, that there is, I'm not going to get the lore of it necessarily correct, but basically there's this stuff that infects people, and it kind of turned and it I'm trying to come up with a good parallel, not like Borg, but it kind of, in a way, it's kind of like being converted to a Borg, and because your motivations get supplanted.
So like pod people type.
Sort of like that, and
Okay.
And so it's this futuristic thing where the players play as guys with big guns and jetpacks, and the premise is that the gameplay itself is that you are you're shooting at these guys and killing these guys, and there's all these territories on the map. It's a little bit like PlantSide 2, where the infected guys, they're all NPCs. And you kill these NPCs, and there are objectives that you can take in each little territory, and you will liberate it basically from these Borg guys. But then the Borg guys can come back and they can retake it, if you don't do anything about it. And so there's this battle that happens where you're trying to make sure that you keep on fighting back the darkness, as it were, right?
Okay.
And so it sounds kind of compelling, I'm
sure.
And there's this sense of I think that there is some storytelling involved, that they knew what was going to happen as the developers, but the players didn't, and they were going to reveal things as they discovered things in game, and kind of turned into a semi D&D experience in a way, which is okay.
Not a bad idea.
But what killed it for me, because I tried this out, and it was awful, because if you think about the premise of trying to fight back the darkness, and I can take this territory, but then they'll take it back and whatnot.
Right.
That's really, really problematic from a game design standpoint, because what if the dudes take over everything? What happens then?
Yeah, I guess you're kind of stuck.
And suddenly the spawn point where everybody respawns doesn't exist anymore, and I guess nobody gets to play the game. Did it?
You lost. It's an apocalypse.
Did the collective players lose, and now the studio has to close down? I mean, that's not going to happen. So so basically, what they have to do, and they'll find a lore version or a lore reason to justify this, but they have to make the central point where everybody spawns incontestable. That can never be taken over. But
that just removes all the urgency out of it.
Exactly, because and you can't actually go out and take all the territory and permanently, because even if you control the territory, it'll eventually just get taken back, and it kind of becomes a story of whether or not the players could bother to take the territory, because it's just so futile. There's
they implemented something similar to that in WoW.
I bet they did, because the WoW likes to do that.
Yeah, and I remember I've played WoW only very briefly, but I remember reading a story about this set of zones where one faction can control them, and then the other faction comes in, kills all the players of the other faction, and then they control it, and it goes back and forth. But what the players found out was that when you win a zone, you get a time limited buff.
Oh, I know. Wait. Which expansion is this?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, because go ahead and finish your story.
Okay, well, what ended up happening was the players in opposing factions began to cooperate and would share the zones so that they could keep the buff for longer.
Okay.
So, like one faction would have the buff, and then the time limit would run out, and then they would allow the other faction to come and take it so that they could have the buff for a while, so that they could come and retake it to get the buff back.
Blizzard, you should know better, because this exact same thing happened in the Burning Crusade expansion.
It may well have been the Burning Crusade that I'm talking about. I don't know.
So like the example that I have is that there's a zone called Hellfire Peninsula that has these 3 towers. And if you control all 3 towers, you get a zone-wide buff of extra damage. So you want to control those towers. It seems like a good thing. But there's also a daily quest that points you to those towers, which isn't the worst thing. Like something that points you towards that PvP is probably good.
Right.
So the problem was this, that the daily quest objective was to take all 3 of those towers once, and if you had done that, then it was complete and you could turn it in for some extrinsic reward. Well, right. What people realized was that if you already controlled the towers, you couldn't actually take it. So what happened was a bunch of enterprising people got onto the forums and said, "Hey, Horde people, we will let you take this over because we want to take it over. And then us taking it over is good for you so that you can take it over so you can do your daily quest." And we're just going to this cycle of everybody just trades it back and forth. And like you would have people in chat, like in the zone chat, who were vitriolically like calling people assholes who were trying to oppose the capture. Like those people were assholes for obstructing people's grinds.
When playing it right.
Yeah, they were playing it right, but like, no, you're like you idiot, what are you doing? Let them capture it. Like that's good for us. And like it was such a disaster. And like the way that you described your example, it feels like it may have happened afterwards.
No, I to be honest with you, I think that's the example I'm talking about.
Okay, that's probably correct. I
believe so.
Yeah.
Did you write an article on that? On your blog?
I didn't, but I did. Okay. God, I know I've written about it.
Because I read that. I read and I believe the towers is the example that I'd read.
Weirdly, I was involved with the Guild Wars 2 beta, and I actually related that story in their private beta forums. And man, wouldn't this be uncanny if like you had also been like a beta tester and like, having read that forum post, because like that was totally me. But like if it wasn't, if you weren't, then I understand.
No,
that.
I wasn't.
I may have also made a Reddit post on it, like in response to one of my articles. But like either way,
it might have been. I can't quite remember where I read this, but it brought up that exact point.
Yeah, I mean, like that was something that like, oh god, I played. I'm gonna be honest, I played quite a lot of WoW back in the day, and I'm not super proud of that, but
there's nothing wrong with it.
Like I understand,
as long as it didn't ruin your life.
Yeah, I understand the thing that drives people to play that game.
Yeah, definitely.
But like obviously my current thoughts on it are more like the first article I ever wrote. So there's that, but. About that time in my WoW playing career, I got really cynical about extrinsic rewards in games. And I just thought to myself, God damn it, like I just want to play this game, and there's all these things like rewarding me with like extrinsic motivators, and it's motivating people to play the game in a way that like doesn't seem optimal. Like it's kind of like how like their 40 on 40 battleground Alterac Valley used to be this big slugfest of like 40 people in a big line, like just like pushing people back. It's this big tug of war, and like those matches lasted forever. And I understand why people don't like the games that last forever. I personally think that games should be probably a lot shorter than they are, but I did like the struggle. But what was interesting was that the way that people eventually played it was this whole base race nonsense, where they actually like got to, because the goal of Alderac Valley is to kill this NPC on one end of the map or the other. And he's like a big boss fight that you actually kind of tank him like a PvE raid or something like that. It's kind of weird.
Okay.
But like, what people started doing was, rather than like fighting their way against the players of the game in order to get to that NPC boss and finally being able to like take the last spawn point and then beating the boss and finally winning. Instead, what happened at the beginning of the game is that the entire group of 40, both groups would just totally miss each other in the middle of the map and would just walk past each other and like let them by. So that they could they could uncontestedly run to the bottom of the map and see if they could be the first group to kill the NPC down at the bottom or the top of the map.
Huh.
And the reason why they played this way was because it was a lot faster than actually opposing. Not that because actually Horde was disadvantaged in that way. And so if you wanted to actually win, as Horde, you had to actually oppose their camp. But that resulted in a match that took forever. So what Horde did was they just participated. They just laid down. A lot of them even just stayed in the spawn point and didn't even do anything, because at the end of the battleground you got awarded these honor points and these tokens that allowed it. And so it was just considered to be here's what you got to do in order to get your PvP gear. You got to go through this really unpleasant experience of sitting AFK in the cave, and waiting to get your tokens. And then you'll get your PvP gear, and then you can actually play the game. And it just bothered me on so many levels that extrinsic motivators were messing with the way that people played even the competitive aspect of the game. And I think that's what really led me down to start to question the role of extrinsic motivators in games at all, because extrinsic motivators supplant the goal of whatever game that you're in, basically.
Right. Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because it can be difficult to find that intrinsic motivation to play in some game, especially sandbox games, for example.
Think of Terraria. What does everyone do with Terraria? Is they go and kill bosses because they can get loot,
exactly.
They totally miss the idea of I can build a little system of liquid tanks, I can build a really nice looking castle. I mean, people do that, but I don't think that's how the largest portion of the Terraria population plays that game.
No, and I brought that up earlier when I mentioned that I'd only found one streamer on Twitch that does do that, and in every other Terraria stream that I see, they're people with these dirt houses and in-game gear.
But that's what's funny is that's how I found myself playing that game, because it was just okay, I need a house so that I can have my NPCs, and I always had the most boring houses available because it was quick and it got me what I wanted, and and it really made me
dirt towers.
It really made me miss what the game probably should have been about. And that's why I think that Terraria is a lot worse than Minecraft, is because they inserted all this grindy nonsense. So it's unfortunate. And then what's even worse is now you have a game like Starbound, which takes the worst element of Terraria and makes the entire game that. Now I don't even think that you can because you just keep on coming back to your starship, which you don't even build anymore.
Right.
And
well, I mean, I guess in this case it depends on what you're playing the game for. I mean, Starbound is not the game you want to play if you want to build things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you say that they took the worst elements of Terraria. Maybe they just stripped out the stuff that people weren't doing.
But that's just it. Is I think it I consider it to be the worst element of Terraria, but I also think that Starbound it's kind of like how Rogue turned into Angband, turned into Diablo, it makes sense to do those things.
Right.
But only in service of a constant cycle of loot acquisition and plus ones. If you consider that to be the best part of the game, you're going to take everything out of the game other than that, and that's how we get Diablo.
It's funny that you say that. I was watching somebody is doing a Let's Play series on Starbound, and they said exactly that. They said something like, he did a quest and he got an upgrade, and that upgrade allowed him to do another quest to get another upgrade. And he said, is that what this game is going to be? Am I just going to be constantly doing quests to get upgrades to do quests to get upgrades? He said something like, I was really hoping to see something unique pop in here, but it really does seem like that's the direction they're taking it.
Do you know which game he was talking about? I mean, he could be any number of game. Oh, Starbound.
He's talking about Starbound.
Starbound. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I missed that. But yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing is that that's what so many games are today. And I understand why they work, but I consider them to work on people. It's in the exact same sense that slot machines work on people.
I see.
Like people have a vulnerability to it, as opposed to a motivator.
An attraction to, yeah. So, that's interesting to think of these sorts these games as preying on people. The way slot machines prey on people.
See, okay,
it's
and that's one of those things that people. It's a very ugly truth that a lot of people don't want to hear, because they play these games and a lot of times they associate parts of their identity with that game,
right?
And they don't want to hear that it's just kind of taking their time and money
and people will justify these things in their heads. They will sort of pretend like they're having more fun than they are.
Yeah,
it's actually honestly believe that they are, because that's just the nature of the human mind.
Right. I mean, it's the gambler's fallacy. I mean, we have a word for that in psychology.
Yeah, exactly.
So these are things that we know, that we've known for a long time, and
see, part of me is like, wow, that's horrible. Why are we doing this? And another part of me is like, how can I get in on that and make some money?
I know, and that's the tension that all developers have to face and own up to. It's that's why I think I should mention right now to anyone watching the stream that one of the reasons why me and BrightUmbra are talking at all is that we're thinking about collaborating on maybe a little bit of game design work,
right?
Which I like, and I figured that the whole impetus of this conversation, just getting to know each other as developers and as gamers,
right?
And so I'm going to say this right now, that I consider my work as a designer, should I enter the field, I consider my work as a designer to have moral implications. That it's Jonathan Blow of Braid has a really I've seen two presentations that he's given that are kind of related to this topic, and he said, and one of the things that really resonated with me is that our medium has power for those reasons that we say, these kind of mind control-y reasons, but if our medium has power, that's really exciting, but also really sobering, because if our medium has power, we should be able to do things that we are ashamed of, and then make a conscious decision about whether we're going to do them or not.
Yeah, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, it's true. So
at the risk of being cliche,
my goal as a designer, should I choose to enter the field again, is that I want to, if I make something, I want to make something that will deliver value to people. I want you to come away from my game with a richer human experience, and I want you to play my game for the reasons that for intrinsic reasons. Like my game should be inherently rewarding without any sort of like layer of extrinsic motivator trying to compel you to do this thing that you otherwise really wouldn't do. I mean, imagine playing Diablo and your numbers never went up. And the monsters
or like the people who play Spelunky just for the daily challenges, just to be on the leaderboard.
But see, I think that's a different dynamic entirely.
It is, but it's also it's playing on that need for social gratification.
Well, okay, so I think we need to take a timeout and basically.
Okay, I'll go stand in the corner.
Yeah. No, we need to take a quick timeout and and draw some distinctions between what maybe good motivators for games are, because someone who plays chess, that's a very fulfilling experience for him, but the fulfillment of the experience comes in the pursuit of victory. The pursuing the goal is what produces the valuable experience.
Right.
And if you think about that, you can extract that into a larger meta goal with an ELO system, where being at the top of the ELO system means that your understanding of the system is greater than everyone else's, which can be kind of a power trip fantasy thing. But it also means that your pursuit of that goal is successful. So you set out in a competitive game to be successful at that goal, and that competition drives it sets a framework for all the decisions that you make in that game, and for all the things that you think in that game, and how you think in that game.
Right.
So having a leaderboard in a game is a way to basically set a grander stage for your play and behavior.
I didn't mean to suggest that having a leaderboard by itself is a problem. I was really just calling attention to those people that play only for the leaderboard. They're not really playing to play the game. They just want the high score.
But see, here's the funny thing is that I think, when you say you're not playing a game to play the game, I think that playing the game for the high score is playing the game. All the decisions that drive what you do in the game in pursuit of that high score is what it's what I was talking about earlier with Dwarf Fortress doesn't have a goal, Minecraft doesn't have a goal, how much of those systems is responsible for the experience that you create.
Well, I think if when I say playing just for the high score, I mean you're not deriving any enjoyment out of the play of the game unless you get the high score. Does that make sense? Like people that play Pac-Man professionally, for
right.
For example, I mean they're not playing the game because they're deriving enjoyment out of the simple act of playing the game. They're doing it. It could be literally anything. They could be doing typing tests for the score.
Okay. Okay, but again, I
mean, is that really playing the game? I
think I understand where you're coming from, but I think that it's, to me, I'm suddenly reminded of a conversation I had about Final Fantasy. Where the how did that conversation go? Basically, I was saying that if you are, damn it, this is I'm gonna really get this wrong how the conversation went, but basically, you could play the game, which is the system by which it basically, God damn it, I could probably almost call up this forum thread too, but that would take too long. Basically, I was saying, actually, you know what? It's kind of related to what I was saying in Dark. Oh, you know what? I'm going to supplant the Final Fantasy example with a Dark Souls example, because I feel like the person who said this to me would say the exact same thing in this scenario.
Fair enough.
So in my latest Dark Souls article, there's a quote from the article that goes something like, you could go and kill Dragon Rider, enter his room and engage with him in melee combat, and master the challenge the designer is putting forward to you, and play the game. But there's really no need for that, because you can actually just shoot him from outside of his room where he can't even aggro, just with 1 damage per shot until he only has 1 hit point in, and then hit him with another arrow after you come in, and it's actually a better solution. So you could play the game, but you don't have to. You could just do that instead. But I think that there are some people that would say, but Sam, are you not playing the game? I mean, what does playing the game mean? And I think that playing the game is engaging in that complicated decision-making process of what the tension of what should I do, or how do I pursue this goal? A game to me is an unanswered question, if nothing else, what is going to happen next, and the idea of, I am going to fire an arrow at this guy and I already know the outcome, and it's just a question of me going through the motions, does not strike me as playing a game. It strikes me as skipping the gameplay, which is the intended experience. Right? I mean, it's it's very, this gets really philosophical.
It does.
But I think that anyone who makes games should probably confront a lot of these philosophical questions.
Oh, certainly.
So that they know kind of what they're doing. Right? But
yes, absolutely.
But here's a parallel example to what is playing the game. So here I am playing Diablo, and I'm in my cycle of +1s. I'm killing the monsters, and I'm getting the loot and doing my thing. There's another game called Clicker Heroes. Are you familiar?
I think I've heard of it.
Clicker Heroes is a game where you kind of basically there appears in front of you a monster. And he has a hit point bar, but he doesn't move or anything. He's just kind of sitting there. He looks kind of cute. He's very sparkly.
Sure.
You click on him, and a little sword strike happens, and he loses a hit point. And nothing else happens. So you keep clicking on him, and you deplete his hit points, and you get a little bit of gold. And you then get a new guy immediately, just taking his place. And there's always just one guy, and you click on him a whole bunch of times, and he dies. So it's not very much different from Diablo at this point, other than a little bit of moving around and a little bit of minimal tactics. But let's take this to the next step, because what do you spend your gold on? You spend your gold on automated DPS, which happens constantly. It just runs. In fact, this DPS runs while the game is closed. So there is you are never not playing this game.
Oh, geez.
So, and then every once in a while you go back and look at the game, and you spend your gold on the next set of upgrades, and as you, if you want to get more gold, because there's this cycle where you very quickly get the ability, get more DPS than this guy even needs, and it becomes optimal to progress. Click on the next stage button, which introduces another monster which has more hit points, because there's a respawn time, and if the monster just instantly loses all their hit points, you're spending more time waiting for a monster to respawn than you are actually doing damage to the monster.
Oh, and if you can thus reducing your DPS.
Yes, and so what you want to do, especially because the gold the gold rewards are much higher with each progressive level. And so you get more and more gold, and you keep on buying more and more automated DPS, and your automated DPS can go into upwards of I think 30 or 40 figures.
Jeez. What?
And so
30 or 40 figures?
Yeah, it gets to the point where it has to actually...
So hundreds of trillions.
More than that, man. I'm just It's like there are these are
Millions
numbers
of
that I do
trillions,
not
good Lord.
know the words for. Those are those numbers.
What? This is ridiculous.
And but nothing ever changes in the gameplay.
Do your clicks still only do 1 damage at this
Well,
point?
and that's the funny thing is you can also upgrade your click damage, and there
Okay.
are like abilities you can unlock which like automate your clicks as well as you can click on the ability, and for like the next 10 seconds you will automatically click like 100 times a second.
This is not a game.
And yet people play it.
At the end of it, it's not a game anymore. It's a movie.
So here's the funny thing. Did you realize that you can today go onto the Twitch category for this game and watch someone or something or no one play this game? You know, like, and there's like a thriving Reddit community
right now.
Like there's a Reddit community surrounded to I don't know what questions they're answering, but like they're talking about it, and like
Are they making money from this game? I gotta know.
I don't think so. I think this is just like a flash game that you can.
I
just
really
play.
hope not.
But get this. It's not the only one. There's an entire there's a game genre.
This is a genre of games
named after this called idle games.
Oh my god!
And by the way, Extra Credits definitely did an episode on idle games and why they're so great. And
oh wow!
They seem kind of embarrassed, but at the same time they're like, but it's still kind of fun, isn't it? And
what?
And I'm sorry, but I don't have, because of stuff like that they say, I don't really have a good deal of respect for Extra Credits. In some ways,
I'm trying to imagine a set of circumstances in which I would find that fun.
And
to watch my character beat up something and then just move on to the next all by itself.
Yeah, I mean, this
is coming from a guy who automated EverQuest. I made a living off of watching the computer do things on its own.
But see, you had the ultimate extrinsic motivator, right?
Definitely.
So you had a reason to do that.
Now, I never told you what I did with EverQuest 2.
Okay, what's this?
Well, so I continued my my quest with automating games. I met a guy online who had written sort of a similar program that I had made for EverQuest 1, but he did it for EverQuest 2. The crafting system in EverQuest 2 was quite a bit more complicated. There were multiple steps. There were things that you had to do to keep the process going. It was a very long process, and a lot of people found it quite boring. It was often compared to whack-a-mole.
Yeah. What is a crafting system but whack-a-mole?
Right. Exactly. Unless it's an automatic crafting system like WoW has. Mm-hmm. But so he wrote a program that automated the whole thing, and I got in touch with him because he had expressed a need for another developer to do some debugging and upgrades and stuff like that. And so I helped him work on this program. Well, eventually there was an awful lot of demand for another sort of automation program for EverQuest that would automate harvesting items.
I bet.
Yeah, because nobody wants to run around a zone for 8 hours clicking on harvest nodes. How much fun is that?
Right.
I mean, really.
But so you have to, so.
Yeah, so I wrote a program that would run your character around on a path that you record, and it would do all the harvesting for you.
Yeah. I mean, that stuff is commonplace in all MMOs, basically.
I raised a family on the income from that program.
Wow. This is so because I played WoW back in the day, and I always used to think, oh man, those bots, those evil people, they're not playing the game and doing the work. And had I met you back then, and Jesus Christ,
I'd have been one of those guys.
Yeah, I think there would have been blows exchanged or something, but
well, no. See, here's the funny thing. I didn't actually think about this until it occurred, but we had a customer who thanked us because prior to our programs, he couldn't play the game. He was physically disabled.
Huh.
He could not compete at all. He could barely play the game because it required doing these things in order to get to the point where you could actually play.
Uh-huh.
To get to the end game content, that sort of thing. And he thanked us because otherwise he wouldn't have had any fun with the game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, here's the kind of funny thing is that many games, like, and this is MMOs are kind of a prime example of this.
Oh, it's outside.
But like, it's in other games as well. And one of the things that you see a lot in games is kind of this injection of rote tasks, where you know exactly what you should do, and you just have to go and click the buttons and put the round pegs in the round holes, and it's just kind of work. And like a lot of games are about work, and in fact,
right.
Like you could even maybe go so far as to say that running down the linear corridor in Resident Evil is like a form of work that is only made like interesting because of its atmosphere and the potential threat. Like that's the only reason why walking down the corridor in Resident Evil has any tension, is because of potential threat.
Well, those are potential jump scares.
Right. But then once you know where they all are, you don't want to play Resident Evil anymore, because like you see it for what it actually is. Right. Is that it is now just like, well, now I got to run down this corridor and like nothing's going to happen until I get here. And, and now the labor has been exposed.
Right.
So like, one of the things that I find fascinating about EVE Online though, is that like, personally, I find EVE Online to be an extremely positive direction for MMOs to go for many, many, many reasons. And many of those reasons are highlighted in a video that was done for GDC, where one of the devs basically talked about the design pillars of the sandbox that is EVE Online. I gotta link you some of these videos I've been mentioning. I'll do that maybe like later on.
Sure.
They're worthwhile watching for sure.
But send them to me on Skype if you.
Yeah. So some of the stuff that he talked about was the fact that in EVE, you pilot your ship by right clicking on like a jump gate, right? And you click warp 2 and it goes. And then you go then you actually get there, and like you can actually have queued up like a jump through the jump gate, and it will do that when you get there. Which like you don't really think very much of. You think you just kind of think, oh well, it's a spaceship game, so that makes sense that they do it that way, right? Sure. But like what's not so obvious is the fact that if you contrast the control scheme of EVE Online with, say, World of Warcraft, how do you get anywhere in World of Warcraft? You hold W. Yeah. And
you manually pilot your way.
If you stop holding W, you don't move. You don't go anywhere. Now, there is auto run, for sure, but like your path is very seldom a straight line, and you kind of have to keep on steering, and like if you step away from your computer, you're probably not going to be exactly where you wanted to be, and you might get into a little bit of trouble with mobs or whatever, and so like it's very much like take up your keep you busy, just like keep you engaged, and like as long as you're doing something at your keyboard, then like that's cool, right? And like when you're grinding mobs in World of Warcraft, optimally what you should do is you should do some kind of spell rotation, and those spell rotations are initially kind of interesting to figure out, but like you very, very quickly solve them. Or you even skip that step and have someone just tell you what to do. And then from then on, grinding mobs is a series of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, walk, www, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And like, it's basically
whack-a-mole. It's once again.
Well, it's not even whack-a-mole, because like, it's like whack-a-mole with only one mole,
Right. And you know where the mole's going to be.
Yeah.
Each time.
So like the, If you contrast that though with EVE Online, EVE Online does not have a spell rotation. In fact, you just have these guns that you can even group all into one button, and you turn the guns on and off. And as long as they're on, you are doing theoretically maximum DPS. You know? And like you can like Alt Tab and like do something else, and like you can like read a book, or you can do it. You can do it. My girlfriend does. You can make chainmail things, while you are doing those things.
She makes things out of chainmail.
Yeah, she does.
That's cool.
she's actually made dice bags out of chainmail. They're pretty fantastic.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they taper off and everything. It's crazy. So, actually, real brief plug. I think. Oh God, what is her Etsy page? It's like. I'm a bad boyfriend. Yes, it's like chainmail design. No, it's Joy Ratchman Mailworks. That's what it is. Ratchman Mailworks. So, like you can there are rote tasks in the game, and like it's kind of a shame in my opinion that they are still there, but at the same time they don't require fiddling with them. They don't require your constant they don't occupy you. They're just like, you make the decision to do them, and then the game does its best to do them without very much more of your input. The same thing happens with mining. Is like you fly to an asteroid belt where a whole bunch of asteroids are just there. You don't have to like find them or anything. You just know exactly where they are.
Right.
And you turn on your mining laser, and it just automatically cycles. Like we have had her like running her mining lasers while we watch television,
Yeah.
and like
I've done that myself.
Yeah. So like in some ways what you were doing with making like these bots that play the game, Eve has already done, because there's not very much reason not to do them.
Right.
Which highlights, in some ways, how boring that system actually is. But you mean the mining or like Eve's system or the specific task that you're doing? If it can be automated and like optimally done, then that activity
maybe it should be
is not very interesting.
Right.
Just by itself.
Maybe it should be automated.
But, that's the thing is like one of the things that always baffled me about the crafting system of World of Warcraft is that when you click to craft something, you watch a bar fill up.
Yeah.
What? Like, I mean, it makes sense from like a realism kind of point of view. Like, oh, I have to like stitch it all together and like watch my character fiddle with his hands. But like, there are some crafting recipes that like, your hands glow and it's exciting because like who knows what this thing could be. But but it looks more exciting than it actually is. And like the bar takes like a minute to fill up, and if you stop if you move it all, like it starts over.
Gotta start over.
Yeah, and like it's just like this big.
To be fair, I mean, EVE Online has its share of very long production runs.
See, here's the difference, though.
Which is kind of the same thing.
It's not.
Although you can, you're right. It's not, because you can go off and do other things while they're running.
That's just it. Is that like you
It's not something you have to specifically oversee.
It's something that you make the decision, I want to craft it, and it's going to take some amount of time, but you don't have to like sit there and like constantly mess with it. It's not like.
Right.
It's not like World of Warcraft's Garrison now, where you have to like, you better log back in an hour, or else it's gonna not be as good,
Yeah.
Although, like, to be fair,
those extrinsic motivations.
To be fair, like there is a time that you have to log back in when it will be finished. Although I'm pretty I don't know if you can queue things, and but the principle is kind of like it's kind of the same with the skill queue system, where like. They used to have like a 24-hour window of like, that's as many skills as you can queue, and then you have to come back. They actually got rid of that a while ago.
Because, I know. I read that update.
Because they're like, there's no reason for us to like make you come back and back and back and back and back. Like, just queue whatever. Like, just like make the decision now, and don't mess with the busy work of having like a skill queue computer that like you have to like manage separately from the game.
And from a technical standpoint, that's smart too, because it reduces load on their servers.
Yeah.
If 20,000 people have to log in every single day, and the only thing they want to do that day is update their skills, then that's kind of a waste of computing resources.
It is.
When it could have just been automated, set from the beginning. You know.
Yeah. So like to me, MMOs, they tend to be really like rote tasky and like, you know, do this chore and like to me playing an MMO feels more like work than anything.
Yeah.
And it's not like, and it's not even rewarding work. Like it's just like, oh, now I have more pixels that I can allow me to get more pixels that eventually I will just get bored with the whole lot of them. Who cares?
Right. Well, this is kind of why I mentioned that there's a market for risk.
Well, and that's just it. Is that like what's kind of funny is that that's the only reason why I think that EVE Online is even remotely okay with its rote taskiness. And even then, I wish there were a better way. But like the only justification I feel for these rote tasky things is to simulate an economy, because rote task work becomes valuable. You know, like the only thing that gives anything value is, for one thing, scarcity, but like in a very real sense, also labor. Labor makes things valuable.
Yeah, certainly.
And so if you want to simulate an economy, you kind of have to factor labor into it somehow. But like there are many ways to do that. And like the way the labor that I exhibited in like doing my station trading thing was actually maybe a little bit more decision oriented, where like I made moves that I thought would be give me the most money. And like I had to calculate, what do I do? And it became this problem for me to solve. and like there was also this like space above me that like maybe I could make even better moves than the ones that I'm making. And like that was what made like
that's what drove you.
I couldn't take the whole like run missions where like, you know, the only room for improvement of missions is like running the mission faster. To me, it was just like it was vastly more interesting doing this whole warehousing speculation thing because it was an evolving problem that I had to constantly try to be solving. And that's like I feel like I had a more interesting game than the people I was buying and selling from, because like I had to constantly revise my buying and selling strategy based on market forces, based off of, you know, a very, very complicated equation. So that's why I ended up enjoying that quite a bit. So I don't know. I think it kind of reinforces what I mentioned, where like to me a game is an unsolved problem. You know, a voluntary unsolved problem. And you know, like if you have something like, you know, Analog, A Hate Story, like personally I wouldn't call it a game, but that's not to devalue it, because like I actually kind of enjoyed Analog, A Hate Story, and like one of my favorite stories that I know of in just in most things, like I mean it's not my favorite, like it ranks very highly, is a visual novel called Katawa Shoujo, which is this like basically a visual novel on a high school for people who are physically disabled in a variety of ways. And it's a kind of a fascinating look into like what is life like when you don't have any arms, you know? And there's some really good writing and relationships going on in that thing. I wouldn't call it a game, but like to me it's abandonment of its gaminess was what made it good. It's because like had it been more of a game, then I think its writing would have suffered significantly, and it would have been more distracting to what it was trying to convey as a story. So, like if you haven't played it, like I recommend it. I know it might not be for everyone. But like, you know, I found it to be, and there are some problems with it. Like one of the scenarios is actually not very well written, and like to anybody who plays that game, I hope you don't get that one first, because it's just not very good. But some of the other ones that I've played through are phenomenal writing. I feel like what's going to be a really important thing for video games in general is getting a stronger grasp of their goals as systems and doing what they're trying to do very, very well, as opposed to trying to do many things simultaneously. Like I played Dragon Age Origins, like I mentioned, and like what I was not prepared for the level of suck that was the story in that game. And like
I haven't played it, so.
And I hate to be so blunt, because I know that there are people who enjoy it, but like it's like Joey and I, you know, we read a lot of books and stories and movies and whatnot, and you know, like so we have a sense of like what we'd like to see in stories, and we write stories ourselves. We have for years, and so it's in our interests to know what makes a good story. And like I think that there are things that you can say this is generally the bones of a good story, regardless of like subject material or what have you. And like we played through Dragon Age Origins, and we just like we were laughing our asses off. We couldn't believe how bad it was. It was just so like, but what was really interesting was how many times that I could point at a incongruity in the story or a plot hole or some silliness that would never fly in another medium, and explain to Joy why that story was the way it was for the sake of being an RPG. You know, like it's kind of like the thing where there's there are characters that act really strangely and out of character and against their own self-interests, and like really like fawningly uninterestingly because the player is supposed to be the center of attention, and the game is trying to like be all like, oh, you're the most important thing, and like it does so at the
savior of the world.
Yeah, it does so at the expense of the story. Like there's a character in like one of the storylines that like he's like part of the mob, and like he is like you God, I don't want to set up the whole situation, but like you basically come out of like this, like you break out of jail and you're surrounded by guards, and you're about to be like sentenced to like probably execution because like for like really terrible crimes against like the like not actual crimes, but like it's kind of a like
a dystopian.
It's a dystopian caste system, basically.
Oh, okay.
And so, like you like upset the top caste, and so you're probably going to be sentenced to death. And like the main like one of the characters conscripts you into being a member of the ancient order of evil monster slayers, right? Because that's the main storyline. So he basically saves you from being killed by conscripting using an ancient law and whatever, and like it kind of sort of makes sense, and mostly. And then your buddy, who has not been conscripted, who is still going to die, like turns around and like congratulates you. Like, what the fuck does he care? Like, you like what it like, man, good on you. He
wasn't being sarcastic.
It was.
Yeah, congratulations, jackass.
Like it was unbelievable. Like just like watching these things happen in the story, and I knew, because of the convention of RPG, because of the gameplay, because of the way that the player is the center of attention, everything revolves around you, and because everything has to be just the way you want it to be. But it can't ever actually be that for the reasons we mentioned in like Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
Right.
But like the story is still bending itself over backwards to do that, and in doing so, it's writing a less interesting story. Like the thing that Joy said to me about like how she would improve the story in that game is there's a character, one of the like we call them the fuckables, because like that's really the point of the game, is like you want to like get with this person. So they're called like dateable characters or whatever. We call them the fuckables. So there's one of them is named Alistair, and like Alistair is actually a pretty good character. Like, and his dialogue's really well written, and like he's really entertaining, and he's funny, you know. And so like amidst the rest of the story that like is generally pretty bad, there are a few really good characters that I think mostly that's the reason why people like Dragon Age Origins is they latch onto these actually good characters that are entertaining and just kind of maybe ignore most of the other weirdness. But like I asked Joy, what would you do to solve this game and make it a better story? And she's like, I would take out this. Hi, Joy. We're just talking about you. I would take out the notion that this storyline is about me, the player, and instead make it about Alistair and how he's dealing with the loss of his mentor. You know, because it's a much more interesting story than choose your own, like, how to fuck this person, you know?
Right.
So, like, it's... and then on top of that, like, it frustrates us that we have to, like, constantly be messing with, like, our inventory and our loot, which has and like, a limited inventory system, and, like, optimizing our gear, which is not really an interesting problem, and it has a whole bunch of RPG stats that we only half get because it doesn't actually explain what they do.
Right.
And then we have to, like, go through the motions of all these combats that aren't all that interesting either. And, like, it's to the point where what we're going to do is we're going to install a mod that removes the combat because it's just not that good.
Wow.
So, like, I think it's going to be really important for games to try to take what they're doing and pare them down. That's my instinct. Whenever I see a game that what would I do to improve this game? My instinct is always pare it down, get rid of weird extrinsic elements that don't make any sense, and
right.
You know, are
focus on the stuff that does.
Yeah.
And make it better. Yeah.
That's the other part you missed, by the way. Is the other thing I said to fix it.
Come here.
The other thing I said to do to fix it would be to remove the combat altogether and turn it into a visual novel.
Yeah, that's definitely the case, I think. But like, you know, there's a game called Hammerwatch I've been playing, and like there's this kind of sort of interesting thing going on with it. Like I'm playing a melee guy, and like it's weird because like it's one of those games where you can swing the sword as fast as you can push the button, so it's very, very spammy.
Okay.
But like, what's kind of interesting is I got some upgrades that like shoot out like little projectiles in all directions and heal me when I get a combo chain where like I kill enough enemies in a very, very, very short amount of time. Holy shit, it's short. But like,
were we talking on the order of like a few hundred milliseconds?
We're talking like it's. I think it starts off at like 0.75 seconds.
Wow.
Like you have to, and then like you have to keep going, and like the window gets a little bit more forgiving after that. But like, so you heal a little bit, very reasonably slowly, but reasonably high, and you're also a little bit more powerful as you do this, and you move faster too. But like if you stop killing guys, that all goes away, and there is a theoretically limited amount of health on the floor in the dungeon, and I discovered that if you like, because like what you could do is you could just like slowly draw out these huge crowds and like very slowly kill them in a very, very safe and boring kind of scenario. Sure. But what's interesting is that like when I started doing the combo chain, like I got this really exciting kind of moment of like, you know, oh, I got to like make sure that I kill the right people in this split second, kind of like, oh, that guy, now that guy, now that guy, now that, and like, you know, and constantly changing my direction so as to not be in immediate danger, but also to maintain that combo chain, because like if I don't have any hit points on the ground, the only method of healing that I have is getting into the thick of things and killing things, and that's right. Exciting. However, the designers of the game don't seem to know that, because
oh dear.
because there's all this food on the ground that like you can heal with otherwise. The enemies drop food. It's a lot safer to wait for the enemies to drop food. And on top of it all, I just got a healing spell that I can cast whenever I want, as long as I have enough mana, which regenerates over time. And there's no time constraint on the game. I can just like, if I want to heal to full, what I should do is I should just like not aggro any more monsters, sit still and go make myself a sandwich, come back and heal a little bit, go back and eat my sandwich, You know,
so their main game features are at odds with each other.
yeah, and then there's all this like exploration stuff of like, you know, push the hidden button, which is basically a hidden object game, which doesn't interest me at all.
Right.
And it's like, oh, we once played Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and man, was it cool to find secrets, you know, and like, it just, it's. But like, what actually
there's
happens,
a gem of a game in there, and
there is, but like most of the time, I'm
chisel out all the cruft.
I'm wandering around an empty level, like just like walking in places, and like, you know, I when I buy my upgrades, I prioritize upgrades that will like increase my walking speed, or otherwise like increase the speed at which I will complete this game, so I don't have to play this game anymore. Like that's like it's I didn't say it that way at first, but I realized in retrospect that my motivation was, I just want to get through this game as fast as possible, like just so I don't have to play it anymore. And like,
good Lord,
like I mean, and like I feel bad, like because I feel like I'm really shitting on this game, and like I don't mean to. And I feel like there are a lot of people that played Hammerwatch that like think, oh, this is a fun game, and like, you know, like, and I get that, and especially because it has like co-op and stuff. So like, you know, you add friends to the game, and like almost anything becomes playable, you know.
Right.
So, like, I don't know. To me, there wasn't a very exciting game in there, but like it just they didn't realize it existed. And they unintentionally ruined it.
Oh, that's such a shame.
Yeah. So like that is my instinct is to like